Hi guys, James at Goddard Radio Moscow Beer and Metal Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're continuing on with my series of Kiwi beer reviews that I've been doing over the last little while, and we're going to visit another brewery in the city of Auckland for this one. So this is the Hallertau Brewbar and restaurant for this one, and we're going to have a taste of their Deception Schwartzbier. Now, as you'll know if you've watched my channel over the last kind of year or so, I used to live in Germany and I really do love German beer, and Schwarzbier is kind of one of the styles that I really like. Those of you who think of the word Schwarzbier will probably think of Kustritzer, which is from East Germany, and probably the sort of go-to Schwarzbier, one of my favourites, and I can tell you that this beer is a really good kind of interpretation, Kiwi interpretation of the style. They're very good with their beers over here, and I have to say that with the short experience of Kiwi beers I've had so far, I have actually been really impressed, and this beer is no exception to that. I actually filmed a review earlier, so I will take you through a sort of beer tasting with this one. As always though with my reviews, I'll take you through a very short history, just a minute or two, a short history of the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting part of the video, just fast forward a few minutes and you will get right there. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to the other reviews that I'll hopefully do from these guys in the very near future. So as I mentioned to you, Hallertau Brewbar is based in Auckland in New Zealand, and Hallertau Brewbar and Restaurant was founded by Stephen and Hayley Plowman, and it's based in the Riverhead area in Auckland. So the brewery business was founded in 2005, and it was one of the first family-owned boutique restaurant brewery operations in the whole of New Zealand. Now, Stephen apparently spent much of his youth sampling many different beers as he travelled the world for his degree in rocks and sciences, he put it, or geology, as you would more likely know it. But apparently he was inspired to brew during a visit to Margaret River in Western Australia. Now, as some of you might know, Western Australia is kind of regarded as the birthplace of Australian craft beer, but now it's really between Western Australia and Victoria. Those are the two kind of big sort of beer producing regions in Australia, and some of the stuff that they're producing over there is very, very good, but the Kiwi stuff is excellent as well, I would say. So some really interesting stuff coming out of New Zealand, so if you do get the chance, definitely give it a go. But all of the beers that you will find from the Hallertau Brewbar are unpasteurised and unfiltered, and they kind of market them along the lines, and they say that they have their own interpretations of various different world styles. So to list a few of the different beers that you can actually get from these guys, in the first four range you have the Luxakulsch, the Statesman Pale Ale, Copper Tart Red Ale, and this guy here, the Deception Schwarzbier, which is number 4 in the range. I believe that was 1 to 4, the way that I listed them in my notes there. In the Heroic range, which is a sort of special edition range, you have the Porter Noir Pinot Noir, Stuntman, Maximus Humulus Upular, and those last two are IPAs. The Porter Noir Pinot Noir is a barrel-aged porter. In the seasonal range they have the Funkine, Nocturne Double Stout, Granny Smith Apple Cider, and Woo Brew. So anyway, that's your sort of little bit of the a little bit of history on the Hallertau Brewing Company. Obviously these guys are a little bit inspired by Germany, because there you have the name Hallertau, which is a famous hop producing region. I believe that the Hallertau region, if I remember correctly, is the one in Bavaria, but there's also another famous hop producing region which is in Baden-Württemberg, but the name of that kind of eludes me at the moment. But we'll get on with the tasting of this beer anyway. I'll try and remember that for you later. So anyway, as I said, I tasted this beer earlier and it is very, very good, but I had issues with the camera, so I was a little bit annoyed about that, because it's always annoying when you do a beer review and the camera doesn't work. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. It's actually a nice kind of quite simple, quite nicely modern take that they've done on this. You can see the number 4, as I mentioned, from the first 4 range, and it's, you know, it's very simple and it's very nicely done. It says on the bottom here, this number is not what he seems. A bit of trickster, really smooth, firm, dark, light bitter, sweet coffee, intricate chocolate, subterfuge, sorry, you've been warned. So as that little bit on the thing, and I was struggling to read that because of the colour, and it says, our first 4 beers began life as humble numbers. The locals tasted and debated characteristics and created their names. Today, whether you know them by name or number, you can enjoy them in the original order. Handmade for freshness, we take traditional recipes and give them a good twisting, squeezing, and out new sensations. There's no artificial hoodwinking, just the simple things done properly to guarantee hopping good beer. And you can see there, that sort of 8 symbol there is the Hallertau Brewing Company symbol. And the bottle cap actually on this guy was just a plain one. I don't know why they don't put that on there, because that's a really cool little label in my opinion. One of the actual sort of more kind of sort of classier ones, if you like, that I've come across from the craft beer world. So anyway, This beer, if I hold it up to light, as you can see, it's a sort of mahogany rosewoody colour. When I poured it, it had just about a finger of a slightly creamy coloured head. It was slightly off-white. If I put my fingers behind it, you can't really see, but when I hold it up to the light, it is actually quite transparent. It does have that kind of ruby edge to it, so it is a transparent beer. When I poured it as well, there was some big bubbles sticking to the side, but it was mainly little bubbles of carbonation just going up towards the bottom of the head. So if you take in the aroma of this guy, it has everything you expect of the Schwarzbier style. So you have that nice little bit of caramel in there. One thing I noticed is that it does have just a nice little bit of milky chocolate, and that's a little bit of a kind of unusual element. Usually you get a little bit of dark chocolate out these guys, but I think the chocolate element to the aroma of this guy is definitely more milky. I should have mentioned as well, I don't think I did, that this is a 5.1% Schwarzbier, so it's about the same strength as the ones you will find in Germany. So you've got a little bit of woodiness in the aroma with this guy as well. And you can pick up just a little bit of charred smoke, but the most prominent part of the aroma for me is the caramel malts and that little bit of kind of vanilla and chocolate element. There's a little bit of nuttiness to it as well, but it's a good bit of caramel that comes out. And you can pick up just the sort of sweeter kind of coffee elements coming out too, but in the taste obviously that'll be a bitter part of the taste. But yeah, that's your kind of aroma thing. As I always say with my beers, my beer reviews, just take a little bit of time and swirl it up, because you will get some of the different aromas coming out there. In some of these Schwarzbiers you will get a little bit of fruit, and you can pick up just a little teeny bit of candied fruit in this one when you swirl it about like that. But anyway, let's give it a taste again. So this is the Hallertau Schwarzbier, my second tasting of it, I should point out. So cheers. So what you'll notice with this one, when I took it in, you do get this nice kind of coffee little bit that comes in at the start, and that gives you just this nice coffee bitterness just around the edge of the tongue. But you've got a really sweet kind of caramel taste in the middle, and it's nicely mixed with that kind of sweeter chocolate element of the beer. But around the edges of the tongue at the start you will get a kind of dry coffee bitterness, but it actually fades away as you go through the beer. I found that the coffee in this one is a little bit more pronounced, but it does kind of fade away as you take a few more sips of this beer. So on your first taste you will get quite a coffee bitter blast. It's a bit more pronounced than some of the German Schwarzbiers, the coffee in this one. But yeah, you've got a really nice malt base on this one, a nice little bit of caramel just sitting in the middle of the tongue, some nice milky chocolate in there, and there is just an element of nutty flavour to this as well. So you've got a nice kind of all the elements that you would expect from the Schwarzbier are here, but it's got a nice blend of flavour, this guy. And I think there's a little bit of smokiness in here too, which is quite interesting. So it's got all the flavour components that you expect of the beer, and as I said, the sort of coffee element comes in quite bitter when you first taste it, but it really does fade and become more of a blend of flavours, if you like. The coffee is very prominent at the start, but it does blend in with the sort of caramel, milk chocolate and nutty elements of the beer as you take a few more sips of it. It's a really nice blend of flavours, this one, and it actually has all the feel of the German Schwarzbiers, in my opinion. It does compare quite well to Kustritzer, except for that little bit where the coffee is a bit more prominent. In terms of the mouthfeel, I'd describe this one as being sort of light-bodied. The carbonation in this one is a little bit more prominent, is a little bit more spritzy, but again, as you go through this beer, it does kind of get a little bit less noticeable. But the carbonation in this part of the world is quite a common thing, because it is quite hot down here a lot of the time, and I found that with Australian beer, and there are some elements of New Zealand beer where it is going to be hot, so you should expect a little bit more carbonation because they want the beer to be refreshing. But that's a very, very minor point. The most important thing is that the flavour of this beer is going to be good, and it definitely is. It's a very nice blend of flavours. This guy has a slightly oily feel as well, and I found that when you take in the flavour of this beer, the oil, you get this little oily bubble that moves towards the front of the tongue, and that helps bring out a little bit of this sort of milk chocolatey, vanilla-y flavour in this one. So just keep an eye out for that when you are actually tasting this beer. But there's a good bit of coffee bitterness in this one, and as I said, that kind of fades a little bit, but the coffee, just that little mild coffee flavour, is what lingers around the edge of the tongue when the aftertaste of this beer. But it's a really nice interpretation of the style, and it is quite interesting to have a Kiwi take on it. And the Kiwis, as I said, very, very good beer comes out of this part of the world. So if you do get the chance to try it, then I would highly recommend you do, because very, very good brewers down here. So overall, it's a very good blend of Schwartzbier. There are a few little quirks, like the more prominent coffee and a little bit more carbonation on this one, which does make it worth trying. These guys are also heavily tipped out, from what I've been told, to actually start exporting their beer soon. So those of you who watch my reviews over in America and stuff might be lucky enough to try some of their beers. And apparently the venue is really nice as well. So if you do find yourself in Auckland in New Zealand, I would recommend that you go and try it out. I don't know if I'll have time to do that this time when I'm here, but definitely in the near future, I hope to come back and actually have a look at it. But anyway, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I do enjoy doing the Kiwi beer reviews for you. As I say, some really good stuff here. Please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to hear that. And please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. There are a few more Kiwi beer reviews for you to come, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the series. Cheers.